Okay, we are live. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I believe this is our third installment of their Child Life series here at Hope for HIE, where we welcome Annie Gunning, our certified child life specialist. Hi, Annie.
Hello, so glad to be here again. We've done
Again.
this several times now.
Yes, we're getting the hang of it now. Today, our topic of conversation is how to support your child's education during a stint of hospitalization and or recovery. And we were just talking about how you and I have both been fighting illnesses and our kids have been fighting illnesses and just the minute stress that comes with a short absence from school. So prolonging that and finding ways to combat, the stress that comes with missing school and supporting your child's schoolwork while he or she's not there. So it's a really
Yeah.
important conversation, and we're happy to have it. So thank you for being with us, Annie.
Yes, absolutely. I hope I'm able to offer at least a few helpful tips and tricks for families and kids
Always.
to be able to use. Yeah.
So we always start this off the same way, and that is if you could just define what a child life specialist is, the role of a child life specialist, and then specifically how you support Hope for HIE in that endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I've been a child life specialist for about 23 years, typically that's been in a hospital setting or some type of an outpatient medical setting. For Hope for HIE, I provide that virtually through either Zoom calls or phone calls or emails. And as a child life specialist, we help patients, children, and families cope with stressful experiences that are happening in their life. Typically, that's something medical related, whether that be an acute condition or something chronic, and they're having multiple hospitalizations, surgeries, tests, procedures, anything to help them cope and understand what's going on while also decreasing their stress, their pain, and their anxiety. And we do this when we involve their whole family, because we know when a child is sick or a parent is sick, not just that person is affected, the whole family is affected. So we also provide, I specifically, especially for Hope for HIE, also provide a lot of support for siblings of our HIE kiddos. And we do that by providing education for them and creative expression, just that in that safe space for them to ask those questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. And we're so grateful to have you on our team as always. And we'll make sure to link how to get in touch with you and how to access Child Life on Call app, which is free to our HIE families at the end of this session, along with links. So let's get into it. I think we're going to kind of divide this by, what you do prior to hospitalization, how you can support your child during hospitalization, and then post recovery as they transition back into school. So going back to pre-hospitalization, what advice or how can parents and educators really work together in order to develop a proactive plan before their child is hospitalized to ensure a coordinated approach to supporting their education while they're gone?
Yes, I definitely think there's things that can always be done, and everything is very individualized for each family and for each child. And I feel like I will probably say that frequently throughout. So these are always, I always try to offer some general suggestions, and some things work for some kiddos and some things don't. Yeah. I think one of the most important things you can start with is if you know this hospitalization or this absence is going to occur, notifying the school. So anybody who's involved in your child's education or their care, the teacher, the counselor, the school nurse, the school social worker, if they have one. Some schools, believe it or not, have child life specialists. Notify them about all of, that your child will be gone and for how long. And, if you're comfortable, let them know what they're going to be having surgery on, or, what the reason is for the absence, so they can kind of be prepared as well. And then, just so they have that heads up, and discussing any schoolwork that can be done remotely. I feel like since the world, of COVID, everybody's been able to do work remotely, and especially, our kids. So if that's a possibility, let's talk about that. Do they have the things that they need to be able to do that remotely? Is there a lot of new material that they're going to be missing that they need to make sure they get done? And then on the flip side, are there some assignments that maybe or projects we can skip? because sometimes when there's so much, especially I feel like for your older kids, that can just be very overwhelming, especially the high schoolers. They already have a huge workload anyway. And so if some of it's repetitive or it's something we can leave out, talk about that. Is there something that we can leave out?
Yeah.
And
Speaking as a former educator, I do feel like
yeah, you could help me do this.
for once, I feel like I'm qualified to offer input and actually have it be received. Um, uh, this is something that every educator truly should be able to do easily within the scope of their responsibility. So I do want to say, if there's ever any pushback, that's not right. This is something that we are trained to do. And also, even mentioning sometimes from parents could mention, like, they're called power standards. And that's really like a cue for a teacher to know and understand that, like, every unit or every material has a certain objective or series of objectives, but
Mm-hmm.
some of them are repetitive. Some of them are repeated in previous units or will be touched upon in other units. So when you mention something called power standards, that really helps parents and teachers know that, like, you're going to narrow it down to what are the one or two skills that are specific to this unit that I would like to have my child focus on. So I didn't mean to
Right.
interject, but I just felt proud that I was able to contribute.
No, please. Yes. I forget that that was your other life. You were an educator. So
Yeah,
yes,
12 years.
please.
12 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So please interject as much as, and if I say anything, you're like, actually, you can do this. Please fill in. Okay. So
Wonderful.
another thing, just to kind of, again, we're planning, we're doing what we can ahead of time. If you can discuss with the team at school any possible cognitive or physical changes or needs that need to be present upon the child's return, to have any kind of accommodations, strategies, or expectations in place. So does that mean, is there a tutor that can, already kind of know ahead of time that this kiddo has been out and they're going to need some extra help, just kind of getting caught up again? Is there classroom or seating accommodations that need to make sure that we're in place? Is somebody, are they going to be in a wheelchair for a couple days or a week? Or are they going to just have special mobility that they're going to need? Let's talk about that and have that in place beforehand. That way, when the kid returns, it's not like we got to hurry up and do stuff, because that just brings more focus to the child, and they don't want that. They want to blend in. They just want to get back to their class. They don't want the eyes on them. And then if
Absolutely.
you could maybe schedule with the counselor, can the counselor do some check-ins as the child returns, just like once a week? How are things going? Is there anything that's been hard, or is there anything that's gone really well? Just another person, just to check in and see how school is going. If, I think counselors typically, I know they're always busy, at least all the counselors I talk to at schools, but I think that is definitely something that they could do, especially just to help with that school reentry.
Yeah.
And facilitation of age appropriate conversations to promote any kind of inclusion, empathy, and education and understanding of the hospitalization or the medical issues with the class. So that way, the class needs to know maybe what's going on. And this is one of those things that I was talking about that might be more of a personal issue. Some families want the class to know some things that are going on, so there's not as many questions. And some kids in the class might be really worried about their friend. Like, where's their friend at? Why have they been gone a long time? And they worry about their classmates, and they want to know. So if there's a way to kind of talk about that, have that conversation with the class, you can ask the family and the child, do you want to be present during that? Do you not want to be present? I know where I worked at a hospital, we would do, as child life specialists, we would do school reentry following a long illness. And sometimes the kids wanted to, like, the patient wanted to be present. And sometimes they just wanted us to go in and kind of provide the information. So that's
Yeah.
something that you can maybe talk to about with the teacher or the counselor at the school.
I know that from my experience, and also I know, Betsy's son as well did this. I've had students, and I know he presented on some his surgery that was coming up, and I've had students really be empowered and make a presentation. They do not have to do this. Like, it's really dependent on, like, who your kid is and, like, how comfortable they are
For sure.
speaking about whatever condition they have. But sometimes they made like just a Google slide presentation and just walked their classmates through like, here's what I'm about to go through. Here's what it looks like if you're interested. And I, especially for, I was middle school. So for younger age kids, it really helps them understand why that seat was empty for so long, you know, and it helped alleviate, I think, some peer worries that existed.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you talked about like tutors as well, counselors often are really informed about tutoring positions. Sometimes the teachers themselves don't really have that information. But if your child is older, or if there's some type of National Honor Society that's present within the school, there are a lot of students who love that leadership role, who need hours, like volunteering hours,
Service
and are
hours.
very motivated. Yeah, service hours, are very motivated to like tutor or like you know, virtually meet or in person meet if they can, and catch their peers up on classwork. And then, you know, depending on the duration of the hospitalization and recovery, sometimes like a home-based teacher is scheduled too.
Yes.
So those are all things that parents can bring up.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I really like the idea. I'm glad you mentioned like the National Honor Society, because then it's, you know, it's peer-to-peer, it's free, you know, it's something that the kids usually can, I think, stay back after school for and do. So that's more, you know, might be more convenient too. So yeah,
of course. So to kind of transition for during hospitalization, are we ready to transition to that part of the conversation? You got, okay, I want to make sure, I didn't want to cut you off. What are some common fears or challenges that you've seen children face in order to maintain their education during a hospitalization?
Yes, I think kids definitely have, you know, different worries and fears about being out of school, and, you know, based on their developmental age, that's obviously different for, you know, different ages. But I think a lot of times for older kids, just concerns about being behind with their schoolwork, you know, that can instantly kind of increase some anxiety of just them getting behind. Who's going to help me? And that's why those things we talked about before, kind of having some things in place and talking with them about it beforehand. These are some things we're already going to do to help you. You're going to get extra time, just kind of talking them through and validating that how they're feeling about it, but also letting them know there's a plan in place, and, you know, you're going to work with them in the school to help. Concerns regarding what others will think or say, why they were gone. This is one that I like to do like a role play conversation with. That way you can be in the conversation with your child and give them ideas of things they can say when their classmates or their peers ask them questions. Well, where were you? Well, why were you gone? Well, why do you have that now? You know, did you take a lot of medicine? That way they can practice answering their questions. And then they also set that boundary of what they feel like talking about and what they do not feel comfortable talking about. So having that conversation with them, and if they don't know what to say, giving them the words of what they can say and how they can answer. I was at the hospital and I had to have surgery to have my leg fixed, and now I'm doing better, or whatever it may be, just so they can kind of go through the motions of what the conversation will be like. And in the same kind of way, kids being treated differently for changes in any kind of appearances or abilities. Preparing, again, do that role play conversation, because it's something different about them than, you know, before they went to the hospital, before they went, you know, for surgery or whatever, when they were gone, and have that role play conversation again. Because that is definitely something kids don't want to be different. They want to be like their peers. So have that conversation, and then prepare, again, going back to kind of preparing the class. If there are going to be something that's going to be different, you can, you know, the family can decide if there's something they want the class to be prepared for. Feeling disconnected from peers and missed out on important events. Like, that's a huge worry for kids, you know. Have they missed out on some fun things? Let's just validate that. It just kind of stinks, and I'm sorry you missed out on that, and you have every right to be kind of sad that you missed out on that event. Let's talk about some of the things that are coming up that might be fun. Feeling unsure of how to explain or talk about their illness or hospitalization, and that's where that conversation, that role play conversation, can come in and be helpful. But they might need some information on what their illness is, what tests did they have, just making sure that they understand what's going on and giving them those simple, clear answers so that they feel comfortable and empowered to explain it. Like kind of going back to your suggestion of doing doing a presentation, that really is empowering. I think that's an awesome idea for kids who would want to do that. And then they could probably do it for like a project and get a grade too, which would be like a two.
Yeah.
Physical limitations, especially if there was something that were not present before. I kind of mentioned that before. That's something and definitely a worry and something that kids would be thinking about. Worried about missing more school days because of impending or more health issues that could come up, doctor appointments, things like that. Like they've already missed some. What else am I going to miss? Helping them, again, validating that, letting them know that you've got a plan in place and you're going to help them. And for younger kids, separation from parents and family. They've spent all this time at home and now they got to kind of readjust to being at school again. Let's help them with that separation, because that could definitely be hard as they get back to school and get back to that routine. The ability to handle any new medical needs or dietary needs while in school. So if there are those changes, this is something they're going to need help with, and make sure that they understand, because that can definitely be a worry or something that they could be nervous about. Is there new medication they have to take? Do they have to do that at school? Is there things that they can't eat anymore? Any kind of medical equipment that they have with them, and making sure that they understand what they can, how to use it, or what they need to do or not do. And then communicating with your child, just keeping those lines of communication open, asking them what they need or what they're nervous about. And I love with younger kids, like elementary, you can do this through play when you're playing with stuffed animals or dolls. And the doll, they like to transfer how they're feeling through their play and through their toys and their stuffed animals. So recently I did a group with kids, and all of a sudden everybody was just talking through their stuffed animals. So, oh, my stuffed animal, whatever, they all gave them names, but they were helping each other and giving each other suggestions their stuffed animals were. And so doing that with elementary kids could be really helpful. That way it's less threatening and they're more likely to share some of their fear information. And with older kids, with that communication, get in their world, while you're playing basketball, you can talk about, what are you nervous about? Or while you're playing a video game, what are you thinking about school? How's it been going?
I know that I hope you don't mind, Annie, if I go just a little bit out of order on our questions, just because if we're talking about these like fears and worries and challenges that they have, I think it makes sense next to answer so how do you support their emotional and psychological well-being as a result of those fears? So, and then we'll get back to how a child life specialist in the hospital can support. So anyways, how can we, or parents, hospital staff, support this emotional and psychological well-being of a child during their hospitalization if they are expressing some of those fears or worries?
Yes, definitely. And some of this might be a little bit repetitive, because I said this a little bit before. Rehearsals, conversations, the questions, the answers. Do it with their peers, with their teachers, because their teachers might ask questions too. You want them to feel comfortable and empowered with all those conversations. And you can have those with the staff at the hospital, like tell them to ask the nurses and the doctors, have different people ask them questions. But it's really important just to make sure that they understand what's going on with their bodies and what they've been through, so that they feel comfortable sharing that. And again, making sure that they have that boundary, so they know they don't have to share everything. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing is okay. And this is your stopping point of what you don't want to share. And this is what you can say when you're done talking about it. I told you that I was I was in the hospital and I had my tummy fixed because my tummy was sick. And now I'm feeling better. And I just have to take medicine at home. And that can be it. They do not have to say anything else. Obviously for older kids, it can be more detailed, whatever they want to share.
Well, boundaries are hard, I think, to establish. I mean, I'm 33 and I can't even do it. So I think, there's always this peer pressure to divulge more information than maybe you want. So I love that idea of rehearsal and really practicing and being purposeful with the words that you choose. That way it's like a firm, I'm done talking about it. This is what I'm going to give you. And that way, they don't flounder, what do they say?
Yeah, I even have kids, when I do my grief groups at schools, they're like, well, people always ask me when I come back, where I've been and I don't know what to tell them.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
just even that little thing, they're gone for 45 minutes. Where have you
Hmm.
been? And so I'm like, okay. So,
And
and
they
then we
ask.
rehearse that.
Kids ask.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, they
nosy
want to know.
for
Yeah,
sure.
they're
Hmm.
curious.
Hmm.
Okay. Celebrating all their progress and victories, even small ones, any type of progress. Let's celebrate anything that they're doing that's, you know, moving forward and moving in the right direction. Finding outlets for creative expression, play, and processing. So while they're in the hospital, when they're recovering at home, that opportunity for play, for creative expression, that helps with the processing of everything that they've been through. And so that really is important. Provide encouragement and validation of emotions. However you're feeling, you can be feeling frustrated. Yeah, you can be frustrated right now. That's okay. And we don't have to fix how they're feeling. You know, I think as parents, that's what we want to do. Don't be sad. It's okay.
Hmm.
No, you can be sad. It's okay to feel sad. I think if so and so was in your place, if I was in your place, I'd probably feel sad right now too. And just let them be like that, you know, and acknowledge that. And then we can move forward. Is there anything we can do to help how you're feeling? Do we need to talk about that? Like what can we do to talk about? We don't have to fix it. Should we talk about it? Is there anything we can change to make it, you know, any different? And then we move forward and find something else for like a distraction or alternate focus.
Okay.
But I just did that with my daughter the other day. I'm like, don't be sad, it's okay. And I'm like, no,
I
be
know.
sad.
It's so hard not to resort back to that style of parenting. I
It
mean,
is.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, my daughter struggles with sensory issues, and it impacts our day-to-day life profoundly. And I find that when I validate her feelings, even if I don't want to, that I am more successful in moving
Mhm.
past the problem and finding a solution. So I think that's really good advice, as opposed to saying, you're fine. Oh,
Right.
I should really make like a money jar every time I say you're fine, instead of going to your college fund or not. We'll
Right.
see. I don't know. The jury's still out on that one.
Well, and I
So,
think with the little kids, with younger kids, like we're still helping them identify those. And like, you're crying right now. You must be sad. Are you feeling sad right now? Because
mm-hmm.
sometimes we cry when we're sad. Then you're helping them identify those emotions too,
Yeah.
and then help them cope with that feeling. So when they're younger, we're still helping them cope with that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What else do we got? And regular check-ins, just engaging with your child to allow those opportunities for processing, for learning, and sharing how they're feeling and experiencing no judge, you know, their experiences, no judgment. Just giving them that space. And that's maybe sitting and playing with them for 15 minutes. And you can even do, I have these little cards, I think I've shared them previously, called special time cards, and it's like a 15-minute timer. And you do something in this phone gets set aside, the timer goes off at 15 minutes, but for that 15 minutes, you're engaged in that activity. And it
Yeah.
really, it just provides that opportunity for the processing and for that connection.
I love that. Those are the mighty and bright cards that you got. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
love
I
those.
love them.
Yeah. Um, so we have discussed kind of like the fears, the worries, and then how to support those the emotional well-being and psychological well-being of a child. Now I would like to transition back, like during this period of hospitalization, while they're being hospitalized or during their recovery, what does a child life specialist do, or what does hospital staff do, or can they do to support education? No needs,
Yeah.
educational needs of that child.
Yeah. I feel like it all kind of blends together, right? Like
Yeah, it does.
it's all intertwined because if we can support one area, it's going to help the other area.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, and I think is most helpful, is implementing a daily schedule. Anytime I've had a child at the hospital for an extended period, I have found that having a schedule for them, and I make it with them. So it becomes like an activity. We get a big piece of paper and we write, you know, the days, and starting at whatever time they pick, 8 o'clock is going to be breakfast. And then we brush our teeth and get dressed. And, you know, I know I say get dressed, some kids can, and some kids are just in hospital jammies, whatever. And then you might do schoolwork, you then maybe have lunch, or then you have free time, whatever the scheduled day is. You can include PT and OT. If they have a test on a specific day, you can write that in. But really just having that daily schedule, it empowers the child that they have control over what their day is going to look like. It's written, and we know kids thrive when they have a schedule, a routine, and they know what's coming and what to
Yeah.
expect. Like that's pretty much for kids of all age,
Yes,
it's
it is.
definitely for the younger, but it's for older kids too. I mean, as adults, we like to kind of know what our day is going to be so we can plan and prepare. And especially for kids when they're in the hospital and their day is so um, out of their control and what's happening to them is very out of their control. This does provide them an element of control. So that's where you can put like the schoolwork at this time, maybe homework, maybe a special project, puzzles. Like it can be, you can add other activities in too that are going to be helpful.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Referral for a hospital school program or a hospital school teacher. So some schools have teachers in a classroom in there. So you can ask if your school, if that hospital has that, can the teacher come in the room, or on that time during the day, can the child go into the classroom or into the other room and actually sit there and just do some schoolwork? That way it just seems more of like part of your day routine. It's a change of environment, and that can be helpful too. As child life specialists, we can help with access to maybe an iPad, a computer, or a teen room to facilitate that, continuation of schoolwork. So while most kids, now have their own iPads and, things that they use through school, if there's stuff that, things like that, the hospital might have a teen room that has computer access or an iPad so they can continue to do those things if the family doesn't have those. Always worth asking.
Yeah.
And in the same kind of sense, supplies, if there's projects that the child needs to work on or assignments, ask your child life specialist. Do they have any kind of loose parts, craft projects, markers, paper, like all that kind of stuff? Typically, we have all of that stuff at the hospital. So if there's something like that they need, what do you need to do your project? What project are you working on? Let's see if we can find the supplies. Linking families with other families or peers with similar situations or stories. I think that peer-to-peer connection in the hospital is very important. It doesn't necessarily have to be another child with the exact same thing going on, but just so they have that peer connection, because they're missing out on that when they're in school. And that's very important, especially for those like middle school age, high school, like you're really starting to rely more and more on your peers for your support. And so the child life specialist can help maybe kind of coordinate that. Hey, I'm getting some kids together in the teen room. Let's go hang out.
Yeah.
And providing that outlet and opportunity for expression of emotions, processing, learning, asking questions. I feel like this is kind of the basic child life stuff. Like we're here to provide education on what's going on in the hospital, on your diagnosis, anything that's happening, preparing you for any kind of procedures, surgeries to decrease that stress and anxiety. And I think when we can decrease that and alleviate that, it can be more conducive to a more calm and, positive learning environment. That way, if they need to keep doing their schoolwork, they can. And then I have one little thing written on here that I'll share. This is called Monkey in My Chair, but this Monkey in My Chair is specifically for pediatric cancer patients, but I think you can kind of make your own. If it's like a stuffed animal that takes the place of the child in the school. So he sits in your desk, and then it's a communication between the child and the class. They can write notes back and forth, send pictures. This is what we did today. The monkey was with us. So it kind of is that connection to the child has to their class still. So you can kind of make your own.
I love that. I mean, back when I was a sixth grade English teacher, for whatever I have an obsession with sloth. So I had around 30, no kidding, 30 sloth stuffed animals in my classroom. And I envisioned them doing that, taking pictures with it, sending notes. And I know that that's for a younger, of course. I mean, I don't know, some older kids might do it. I don't know. But I think that would actually be really well received. I would love that.
Because I think the teacher could like take a picture and send it to
It would be so easy.
Caregiver, and they can see it just like, this is what we did today, or here's a special message from your class, something like that.
Yeah. So I know we had a question on there that said like, what can parents do as well to support their child's education? And I feel like everything that was under there was also under the things that we've kind of addressed already, like encouraging peer-to-peer connections, asking about a separate room in the hospital if there's like a hospital provided teacher or just a room where they can work, having that daily routine and schedule, incorporating play when you can. So I feel like in terms of time, it would be better spent talking about transitioning back to school now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and what steps can parents or caregivers and educators take in order to ease their child's transition back to school after the hospitalization and recovery time is complete or, underway, but they're still going back.
Yeah, sure. I think an important thing to consider is a phase transition. So as your child is maybe building back strength and abilities, reduced hours or workload might be something that would work for your family. I think that's a discussion to have with your child, with the school, and with the healthcare team. But that's definitely an option. Maybe you go for 2 hours a day and you work up with your strength, or same with the workload. You don't have as much every day. Like the recovering from a surgery, like it's going to take time to get that strength and build back, um, and get back into that routine for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said before, educating the class, we talked about that already. Tutoring or extra help. If there's any learning gaps, extra time. If your hospital, check with your hospital and see if they have a child life specialist who will do school reentry support. A lot of child life specialists the hospitals do, so they can go to the class just to help with that transition and do it with the child. We talked about that a little bit too. And then if parents just want to keep their teachers and staff updated on the child's progress and needs, what are they doing this week? Now they're having progress this week, and then next week, what are they working towards, or have they had any setbacks? What are their goals this week? Anything like that, just to kind of make sure the communication stays open between the parent and the school. And then most importantly, be patient with them. They are going through a lot and dealing with a lot. Think of as adults, we have a hard time coping with things, but kids, they don't have all the wonderful coping skills we have yet. So they have an even harder time. And so we need to help them cope with this transition and just be patient with them.
Yeah. I know it's different for every area, and that technology I know isn't as readily available in some areas as they are others. But if you live in an area that does have technology, I know that we're not grateful to COVID for a lot of things, but one positive thing that COVID did give us in terms of from an education standpoint is transparency with what's happening in the classroom through a learning management system. So whether it's some schools use Canvas, which you might be familiar with because you're in North Carolina, Canvas, Schoology, even Google Classroom. I just feel like there's a lot more knowledge now, and there's a lot more connection between the parent and school and home, essentially. So that could be something that helps as well. So as always, we end our session with recommended tools and resources about the topic at hand, and then other just general areas that parents can visit for support. So if you would like to walk us through some of those resources, that would be wonderful.
Sure. One specific resource that some hospitals may have is a tutoring online platform that is specifically for hospitals. It's called LearnWell. And I actually learned about them at a conference, and we were able to get funding to have them help in the emergency department where I worked, because we had tons of kids that were there for an extended period of time. And they did provide online tutoring. So these were my kids. I would have their schedule, and I would schedule a tutor for 11 o'clock. And then a tutor would come on LearnWell and do tutoring with, whatever patients I had assigned that day. So you can check and see. I thought the program was great. I thought the tutors were great. I remember having two middle school, late elementary school age boys. They happened to get a male tutor, and it was like the perfect fit. And it was
good.
Yeah. And it really helped them a lot. You can just tell in their affect, there was such a great connection. So that's just something you can check to see if your hospital has, if they have some type of online tutoring platform through the school. Then, of course, your hospital school teacher, or I think a hospital social worker, could be a good bridge between school and the hospital. If there's any type of accommodations, notes, anything like that, a lot of times a social worker at the hospital or outpatient clinic or wherever you're going can help with that. Um, excuse me.
We understand.
It's like so much talking. And then the Child Life on Call app, of course, and we'll have all the information on that. But the more I keep, like, I check on the app every once in a while to see what updates. There's so much on this app that you can use. There's stuff specific for siblings. There's specific for the child, the parent. It has a whole glossary of definitions. So this really can be an excellent tool if you need to talk to your child about a specific diagnosis. There's coping skills on here. There's therapeutic activities on here. And I like that it has the whole sibling component too. So there's a spot on siblings. You click on siblings and it has a whole list of resources. It has websites and books. So please, I would love for you guys to check it out, because just having it all at your fingertips is pretty helpful.
And it's free to our community members too. So there's a code that you can input that we will have at the end of this. Once it's uploaded on YouTube, and our social channels will include the code. So that way, if you haven't downloaded it yet, you get it for free. So
yeah, I kind of like to call it like a personal little advocate, because it gives great, like, how do you advocate for your child in a hospital as well? And there is back to school stuff on there too that I actually just saw the other day. So
nice.
And then a couple other things, I didn't get to this. I might have missed this a little bit, but just that additional family and peer support, like connection to other families. There's a couple programs, a Kid Again, so a kidagain.org, and then Casey Cares, caseycares.org. Those are both organizations that support families of children with medical complexities, and they often provide either activities or adventures or get-togethers. It could be at a theme park or a movie night, different things like that, to just kind of connect families with one another. And I think that peer connection, that family connection, although that's not like, you know, directly school related, I think that connection is still impactful for, you know, overall psychosocial development.
Absolutely. As always, thank you so much for donating your time and giving us just wonderful resources and tools to use to help our family members. And as always, this will be turned into key takeaways for our social media channels. This will be turned into a blog post, and you will be able to see our live recording on YouTube in just a matter of a couple of days. So thank you, Annie, for joining us, and thank you to everyone in the Hope for HIE. And we will be back next month with another installment of the series. So thank you, Annie.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.